We're losing Alpha. Check your window. Copy your window.
This is your typical Xbox One controller, unmodified. And what we're talking about today is the fact that you got to pull that trigger all the way in. And what I want to do is make it so that only this much of the trigger pulls out, and when I actually pull it, I don't have to pull it all the way in. And we do that by using a trigger stop, which is a screw inserted here that contacts the body so the trigger doesn't disappear all the way into the cavity of the controller, and a hair trigger, which actually controls how much of the trigger sticks out. So you eventually find this little sweet spot, which I've kind of marked on this painter's tape here. That's when the trigger fires. That's how much I want to stick out. So I'll show you how we accomplish that. So here is the modified controller with the case taken off. I won't tell you how to do that. I'll point instead to a nice video some other guy did of it. And you can see here the trigger stop, which is just a simple screw screwed into the bottom of the trigger. I like to use washers to fine tune exactly when that trigger guard slams into the body casing. And you can use nylon screws if you want to be a bit quieter. It gets a bit clicky with the metal. Or you could put some kind of tape to soften the blow. But this is what does the trigger stop. This thing here slams into the body. On a regular controller, there's nothing stopping it from going all the way in. I played it safe. I put my trigger stop well ahead. Some people put them right in the middle. I want some fine tuning afterwards. And the other important piece of the equation is the hair trigger. And that actually comes into play here. You can see I'm pressing on this little plastic shelf. And that actually ends up controlling how much of the trigger sticks out. So with my hair trigger in, which is a set screw that looks like this, that's pretty small. I've seen people on the Xbox 360 controllers using much bigger ones. You just need one that size. You actually screw that into the outside casing, and that will stay like that. And depending on how many turns you give it, it keeps it in so that it doesn't come out that much. So that, combined with the trigger stop, means that your firing pull is only going to be 5 millimeters if you want it instead of 2 centimeters like it is normally. So I've used painter's tape when the controller was all together, and I had marked off the sweet spots. Same with the drilling. You can kind of just drop the screw here, circle it, and drill away in the center to your heart's content. Let me show you the outside casing where the hair trigger goes. They go here. Those 2 set screws go here and here. And there's a bit of a guide on the inside. You can see here there's a little bit of a channel. And I basically put that set screw right between that channel, and it's in line with the top of it. You'll see it when you take your controller apart, and that's a good shot right there. And that's how much I have sticking out. That's all there is. So they don't have to be long. They can actually look quite clean. If I took some sanding to that, clean that up, that would look much better. So that is where you put the set screws for the hair trigger. So let's assemble this thing all together, and I'll show you what it does. One last tip, right here on the left side of the controller, we're dealing with the battery lead. So I actually put some electrical tape over that one next to the set screw because I don't want the metal set screw touching the metal battery contact. I think that's going to lead to problems, but so far, no issues. While drilling out the holes for the hair triggers, I've removed this one on this side to show you. I took a pencil and I followed the angle of this piece of plastic. This is that channel we saw before where you can actually, there's a groove in there. Following the angle of that, I carried it onto the side, 2 tick marks, and then took it out 90 degrees to the front, and that's how I determined where the hole was. So it starts on the front of the hole right there, in a line that way. And when you're drilling, you want to follow the angle of that plastic piece. So it ends up looking like that. So it's an upwards angle. That'll let you get your most bang for the buck. So I started with a very small drill bit and then worked my way up progressively, and I kept test fitting the set screws to make sure they had enough bite. So just drilled it by hand, slowly going up, adjusting, making sure you maintain that angle. And then from time to time, as you move up to a couple larger bit sizes, when you've got the right one, you can kind of lay the bit in front of the set screw and just make sure that you can't see it. If you can see the bit through the teeth of the set screw, then it's probably too big. And as you can see, this is a good size because it's starting to bite. If we can just get it in there. Remember, it's on an angle, so you're going to want to do it upwards. And eventually, in its final form, it is going to match the angle. So let's see if we can see it coming in that channel. And the final location is just a tip of it sticking out a bit. So it's got a nice bite in there. It's in nice and snug. You do the same thing on the other side, and you're good to go. If you reassemble your controller and you find out that one of the triggers is sticking, it could be that this channel here, because you put the set screw in it, you've widened it and it's sticking out. So if you find that's the case, just take a file, shave off a bit of the plastic, blow it out, and you'll find that your trigger will return back to normal. So here's the reassembled controller, and I've got an Allen key in the end of the set screw. Set screws have Allen key ends to allow you to adjust them. And you can see that as I turn this, that trigger stop can move closer to the body. And that's how you control the pull. And you can actually go too far so that it's firing on its own. So you want to be able to find the sweet spot. What you do is you find a spot on the map and you just go fire your gun in the corner as you make these modifications. If you're in Titanfall, like I was, pilots will come by and kill you while you're doing this. So it's kind of funny. So that, as opposed to this, can save you, because I don't know how many times I've had enemies lined up, go to pull the trigger and I'm dead. So this put a stop to that. Now be aware, some games like Halo actually take into account how far you push the trigger in. So for Halo, you're going to want to use a regular controller or take your trigger stops out. And you can see here, that's exactly where I drilled the hole. You can put a little piece of tape on the bit if you want, if you're worried about depth. I used a screw with an Allen key end because I like that. So you make the hole just big enough for the screw to bite in, and you want those threads to groove into the plastic and make a tight connection. If you screw up and dig the hole too big, I'd put some epoxy or something in there and try again once it all dried. But there you go. Hope you enjoyed this vid, and I hope it helps your playing immensely.
We got a pilot.
Target. Your Titan will be ready in 2 minutes.
All right, we're 25% through the mission.